Alrighty, so we have now seen the debut of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz on the national stage, and we saw Kamala Harris introduce him. So, obviously, very, very high energy event. Kamala Harris is bringing out gigantic crowds. Democrats are, in fact, enthused. They brought out Josh Shapiro for a little bit of a consolation run. He yelled a bit, and his voice broke, and he talked a little bit about being Jewish, which gave Democrats cover to ignore the fact that the explicit reason they did not pick him is because he's a Jew. And then Kamala Harris did an entire speech in which she really didn't talk about politics very much. It was just mostly about unity. She actually tried to channel Barack Obama / 2008, circa 2008. She was talking about red states and blue states. She was talking about how she was going to govern for all Americans. And then she gave you the background on Tim Walz. And apparently, according to Kamala Harris, the relevant stuff about Tim Walz is not that he presided over the burning down of Minneapolis and, in his own words, abjectly failed to stop that from happening. It's not that he has praised socialism. It's not that he's blown out the budget to the tune of a 40% increase in the last year. It's not that he has presided over extraordinary fraud in the state of Minnesota. Of course, you wouldn't expect her to say any of those things. It's that if you go back far enough, he was a high school football coach. And don't you know, he's a teacher and a high school football. He's basically Mr. Feeney, but more athletic. He's like Ed Asner, avuncular, moderate, just one of the boys. You know, a guy who can crack a beer and can shoot a rifle, but is also really, really in favor of gun control and transing the kids. That's basically the pitch in favor of Tim Walz. So she does this routine. These rallies are incredibly well choreographed. I will say that. They are very well choreographed. She calls for a chant, and a chant goes up. First Democratic rally I've seen for a while where people start actually cheering USA. And why are they cheering USA? Because she says, what an amazing country this is. What an incredible country where a person like me, middle-class person, or Tim Walz, middle-class person, can become the president and vice president of the United States. Now, I agree with that. But she doesn't agree with that. She believes that America is systemically racist. So does Tim Walz. Tim Walz said back in 2020 that he believes that those riots were a reflection of the great evil that America represented. And yet here they are doing the unity routine. And that's what is so false about all of this, is this idea that these folks are real reminders of what brings us together, that what they are really interested in more than anything else is governing for all Americans. They are radically to the left. This is why the Trump campaign has a moral obligation to remind the American people that these people are radically to the left. Okay, so that's all the intro to Tim Walz. Then Tim Walz gets up, and he's quite good. I mean, let's just be frank about this. Tim Walz gives a speech, and the speech is avuncular, and it's charming. He's smiling the whole time. He doesn't look uncomfortable smiling. He attacks J.D. Vance. He attacks Donald Trump, of course. The lowest point of the speech is his attempt to signal to his base that he'll take the gloves off with J.D. Vance. He makes some sort of dumb joke about J.D. Vance getting up off the couch, which is supposed to be a joke about a meme that was going around the internet about a false passage that doesn't exist in Hillbilly Elegy, supposedly J.D. Vance having some sort of sexual relationship with the couch. It's really stupid, but it's become a Democrat meme, and now you've got the vice presidential contender who's actually throwing that out there in public. Wink, nod. He even stopped and said, you can see what I'm doing there. And that's the whole idea here. Meanwhile, don't worry, he's bringing Americans together. Now, at no point were the challenges that actually face the country ever brought up. The challenges, apparently, according to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, the big challenges are that Obamacare might get repealed. That's like the big challenge. The big challenge is that Donald Trump might ban abortion, which, of course, he has said he is not going to do and has no interest in doing. At no point was there any talk about fixing the economy. Apparently, the big threat to the economy is the Donald Trump tax cuts, according to Tim Walz. And if those tax cuts were to continue, people might be able to keep more of their own money. And that is a serious, serious problem. Meanwhile, you have Kamala Harris out there. No mention of the fact the Middle East is on fire. No mention of foreign policy. No mention of exactly why the Biden administration seems to have taken the side of Iran in the Middle East. None of that, of course. No serious dealing with issues. And that is the theme of this campaign. In the end, that's the theme of this campaign. Ignore everything. Ignore all of the activities of the Biden campaign and the Biden-Harris administration. Ignore all of it. Ignore Tim Walz's tenure as governor. Ignore all of it. They are casting a TV show. And in this TV show, you have the very charming Kamala Harris, who apparently is filled with joy. That's the other thing that we learned here. So you got the words unity and you got a lot of joy. According to Tim Walz, Kamala Harris is not weird. Right? That crazy laughter, that stuff, not weird. That's joy. The weird dancing and the strange motions, that's not weird. That's joy. And if you don't understand that it's joy, it's because you don't understand joy. Okay, so again, all of this is pablum. It's crap. It's insulting crap for people who actually follow politics. But what I fear is that most Americans do not follow politics. And this is why, once again, it is incumbent on the Trump campaign to remind Americans of who these people are. Nobody has ever heard of Tim Walz. They don't know that he presided over the burning down of Minneapolis. They do not understand that Tim Walz, who had people chanting, "Mind your own business," at this rally, literally forced everyone to close their business in the state of Minnesota during the pandemic. He was one of the worst lockdown governors in America. It's up to Donald Trump and team to remind people of that. The media are not going to do it. And as much as conservatives like I will complain that the media are not doing their job, of course they're not doing their job. Because what we think their job is, to do journalism, is not what they think their job is, which is to provide cover for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz long enough that they enter the White House. So let's not make a mistake about this. The Tim Walz pick, it's going to have a lot of vulnerabilities that Trump can attack, but Trump has to do the attacking. There's certainly enthusiasm. There's certainly talent on the left side of the aisle. People forget that Kamala Harris on the stump can be quite good. We've seen so many clips of her being a weirdo that it's easy to forget that she actually got ahead in politics by being pretty good on the stump, at least from 2019 on or so. She hasn't met the road yet. The rubber has not met the road. She's not been asked a tough question. But Republicans are going to have to do that. I don't want to open my YouTube and see 100 Kamala Harris, Tim Walz ads. The Trump campaign needs to be dumping hundreds of millions of dollars into introducing the Harris-Walz team, the radical duo, the bail out the rioters from prison candidate, and the governor who didn't want to put them in prison in the first place. They need to introduce that team to the American people, because if the only team the American people see is the team that was at that rally, that's very good news for Democrats.